Hey everyone, John Gordon here, and I am beyond thrilled and excited to start having more conversations around real estate, investing, entrepreneurship, business ownership, and kind of the details and the ins and outs of what it took to get to this point, hurdles that I face, and more importantly, just share stories and experiences. I want to get into the nitty-gritty details of highs and lows of what I've gone through personally, what my team has gone through personally. I'm going to explore where I came from, my background, and what excites me most is as we go through this journey together, we're going to learn not just about what it is becoming a real estate agent or the idea of investing in real estate, but just the idea of entrepreneurship, owning a business, what that looks like in owning a business, and seeing what we can learn together on this journey. So that being said, let's get started. This will be the first of many talks that we have. Initially, starting in a podcast version, just discussions, not really a presentation. There won't be bullet points. There won't be PowerPoints because there's a lot of talk and interest and excitement around the term investing and the term real estate. You see it in the news constantly. Even as a professional realtor, I don't even have to really bring it up in conversation because it's just naturally, organically coming up in conversations with friends, with obviously colleagues, or even hearing these conversations in coffee shops, or obviously it's blasted all over the news. So what I would like to do with this discussion that we're going to have together over the next 1, 2, 3, just as long as we need to, is to talk about these terms, kind of pick it apart and have it be more of a natural, easy, simple discussion versus have it be more sales focused. So you're probably curious to learn, who is John Gordon? Why is he having this conversation about this? Where does he come from? What does he know? Well, I have been in real estate or investing of some sort for the last 8 years. I've definitely had my fair share of experiences, stories, hurdles, mountains. I've had the highs of highs and the lows of lows, and I still have so much to learn about real estate in general, if it's as a realtor or investing, and more importantly, as a business owner and learning more about what that looks like. So, where to begin? I'm a small town kid from Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, born and raised. I love joking about West Virginia, but it's a beautiful state. There's so much opportunity. It hasn't been overdeveloped yet. There are a lot of good things going for it, and a lot of, as I said before, opportunity. We'll get into that in a later discussion. So I'm from Berkeley Springs. I have an older sister. My father moved around a ton when he was a kid. He met my mother in Berkeley Springs. He was, or still is, a musician. He was a professional musician at the time. They met at a dance, and the rest is history. So they fell in love with Berkeley Springs, so that's where they stayed. So that's where I grew up. My parents are still there to this day. And so being a small town kid, I wanted to come high school, get out of Berkeley Springs. I still visit, since my parents are still there, I still visit when I can because it is only a couple hours away from where we are in Northern Virginia. And I was ready to go to a bigger school, meet new people, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, just nice, outgoing, extrovert John Gordon, as we all know. So I went to school at Virginia Tech, figured out what it is that I wanted to do, and ended up graduating with an environmental science with a background in green engineering, kind of a mix. I kind of created my own degree in that sense. Fast forward, my first job came in Richmond, Virginia, that I fell in love with immediately. An old friend told me to not forget about how I made my closest kind of friendship connections was through Ultimate Frisbee. So I joined and found the first Ultimate Frisbee group that I could, and that led me to another group of friends, and I still keep in touch with a lot of these folks today. So here I am in Richmond working for a land development firm called Balzer, Balzer, Z-A-R, somewhere in there. But I worked as a soil technician and wetlands delineation specialist. So I went in and determined where the septic field would go, where the well would go, if there were any wetlands, figure out the easements that were instituted with the county, and determine where the house could be built in retrospect to where the wetlands were, where the septic fields were, and the well, where the locations were. So I'd go out into the field, do soil perk tests, and just got to play in the dirt during the winter, during the summer. It was grueling, but I learned a lot, and I appreciate everything that I learned at Balzer before going deeper into the entrepreneurship world, because I learned a lot from having a 9-to-5 corporate job. I understood the team aspect, but it got my foot in the door, but I wanted to have a little more control of what I was doing. So I thought, well, entrepreneurship, being a business owner, you kind of control your own hours, but what that also means is you're not allowed to clock out at 5 p.m. And you could. It depends on how you design your own business, but the 9-to-5 doesn't really work the same because you're working for yourself. You're not working for someone else. So when you wake up, it's up to you and what you do and the systems and the processes and who you call or whatnot. Like, it's up to you to make that dollar, period. Someone else isn't giving it to you. You have to earn it. So and then going to sleep, like, you don't clock out at 5. You could clock out at 5, like most of the folks who are in this world, but that means you're still not making money until you decide to pick up that phone call or have that conversation or whatever that business is that you're doing. And then you create the systems around that as we hear, and I'll talk about more later, life by design, but we'll get into that shortly. So in the entrepreneurship world in Richmond, I started a urban farm called Gourmet Greens, where I grew what were microgreens in a small space in our apartment. Ended up selling to restaurants, distributions, farmers markets over the next few years, and grew this into a larger space, into a kind of a shared WeWork facility called Build, where a lot of different business owners and people could come in and create whatever it is that they were creating. So we had a space there, but had a lot of fun, learned a lot about not just selling produce, but how to run a business, profit versus loss, what the expenses were, working with a couple of either interns or employees, just very small scale. But in the grand scheme of things, it financially wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to be. And so that's where I started learning more about real estate investing. Real estate investing. Another term that, again, we will dive deeper into as we continue this conversation. There was an old friend that I still keep in touch with to this day, Jason, who in our small group in Richmond, at this point I've been in Richmond for about 4 years, he talks about his job. He's a realtor, which again, I have no family members. I have distant cousins and distant second, third, fourth cousins who are in the real estate world, but not at this present moment. I'm not in touch with them. So it's really foreign to me what a realtor is, what real estate investing is. So Jason, who starts to turn into a friend, he talks about, I flip homes, 1 or 2 or 3 a year. And I'm also a realtor. So I help friends find homes and sell these homes that I work on. But my main focus is the 1 or 2 flips that I find off market. And that's my job. That's what I do. And I'm just fascinated by this idea because, one, I have no idea what it means to flip a house, let alone, obviously we all know what houses are, but you drive down the road and it's not really a coined term that you see in the news. You're not Bigger Pockets. I think it's just starting, or it's been around. I have to see when Bigger Pockets started, but it's not in my circles. It's nothing that's really talked about or discussed. So I'm just fascinated with this idea that you just drive down the street, you see all these homes and you can buy them for X amount. You put work into it, then you sell it for more and you take the profits and do it again and again. And so I researched further into this idea of flipping houses. And I asked Jason, I was like, hey, I would love to learn more. Is that okay if I shadow you? Can you be my mentor? I'll be a mentee. You don't have to pay me. I just want to spend more time with you and see these houses and just learn more about this idea of what it is to flip a house. And of course, he's all about it. We get along really well. And the friendship grows and we start touring these homes that, oh my gosh, the fire damage, hoarder homes that are just in rough shape. And again, pause. There are a lot of terms that I'm going to be saying. Hoarders, it's a terrible disease that it's be able to get into more detail on what that means. And it's really sad that people have this disease, but I'll create the terms or terminology for it so it's kind of easier to understand what it is I'm talking about, the benefits to it just as a deal standpoint, and an opportunity for people, if you want to ask questions, how to reach out to me directly or reach out to the page so I can answer questions if there are any over time. So we'll build that out for you. But I started looking at homes then in disrepair with Jason, and I would just listen to everything that he said of costs of fixing this, what to look out for there, structural issues, changing out the electrical, changing out plumbing, just everything that you'd think that you see in a house, the costs behind to do that work, because a lot of times when you're flipping a house, you only get to see it once or twice before you're purchasing it. You're the guarantor. Now all risk falls on you. The payments fall on you. The interest falls on you, like the amount of time it takes to do the work on this home. So then when you sell it, you can pay back the contractor, pay back the investors, the lenders, and that still turns a profit at the end of the day. So it was back in school all over again. I didn't learn about any of this in college. So I'm back in learning mode, which no matter what, you should always be learning, because there's so much to learn about in this world. So over time, I'm looking at homes with Jason. I've seen a lot of his successes. I've seen a lot of his failures. And we're sitting down and I start to ask more about what the rules are, what you're allowed to talk about, what you can't talk about, what the regulations are with real estate in general. Just a lot of these kind of more foundational terms that, not that a flipper wouldn't know. This is more real estate agent, things that you have to learn about. But he flat out told me, he's like, John, you should think about becoming a real estate agent. It's where you take classes and you learn about more of these specific details, which then will help constitute into the flipping aspect, but also you can help your friends buy homes, sell homes. There's the sales aspect and there's the investment aspect, which honestly, in the grand scheme of things, they overlap, go hand in hand. So maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, we're still going through homes, looking at personal investment opportunities, working with Jason, and I connect with an old friend who then connects me with her boss at the time, who's a full-time realtor. She has a small boutique team in Richmond. And we sit down for coffee, and the first half of the conversation is what I'm doing with Jason and flipping and just everything that I've learned, but also asking her a lot of questions, because this is the second time I've really sat down with a realtor, to then she's asking me similar questions of like what my background is, what I'm interested in doing, my interest in real estate in general. And we just connect, we vibe, our energy, we're at the same level. The conversation flies by. It ends up being very positive. And so one thing leads to another, and I start studying to become a real estate agent. And she brought me onto her team pretty much after that to start training me. So even if I'm not a real estate agent, I can't show homes, I can't write contracts, she starts involving me heavily in her conversations with clients. I start to shadow her and her team, just expediting the learning process of a realtor. What most folks learn in 5 years, I have to learn in a few months, just so she can catch me up and train me to be the best agent that I can be as quickly as possible. And so that's here. We've discussed the last 8 years or 7 years in Richmond, where I come into my first job working for a land development company to being the lead buyer's agent on this small boutique team and one of the best teams in the city in a matter of 6 to 7, 8 years. So that is really my background, and the rest is history. So where we are today is I worked in Richmond, ended up I got married to my beautiful wife, Emily. We moved to Northern Virginia, ended up joining a team all through Keller Williams. So joining a team up in Northern Virginia. And I have a lot to thank to the team leader of that team of just not to hold back, be aggressive, go after any opportunity that presents itself, because you never know what the outcome of that opportunity will be, to then having my current business partner, AC, barge into my office. He's like, John, I remember your background in flipping and investments in Richmond. Let's start flipping houses up here in Northern Virginia. And as you as you know, or that you'll learn about who I am and my personality is I'm like, sure, I'm all about it. Let's go. We'll figure it out. There's really nothing in this world that with enough time, commitment, consistency, and perseverance, like you can figure things out. Obviously, we're not going to Mars, or we're not going to the moon. We're not rocket scientists. That's a whole different world. I know rocket scientists, huge respect to them. And all the other professions in this world, it's not rocket science to flip a house, to understanding what the ins and outs are. It's tough. And I'll spend many more discussions on what the things I look for in renovating a home, details, nitty-gritty details, mistakes that we've made, even ish scenarios that were out of our control that removed or we came into the negative with projects. There's just so much to discuss around this. But for now, for this conversation, that's how I got into what's now Collective Investment Group, just by one of my favorite lines and laws, thanks to Gary Keller, is failing forward. So you're not learning if you're not failing. You fail, you fall down, you figure out where the mistake was, you learn from it, and you keep moving forward. Hence the fail forward, fail often. So that's where Collective Investment Group started. Still to this day, we have gone through some, let's just say, our own company or business correction that we're still going through, which I'll go into the mistakes that were made, what we've learned from it, and how we're shifting with the current market that we're in. Plus, my background is a realtor and going from team to an independent agent, partnering, going back to an independent agent, and now where we are today, I'm created Fortis Real Estate Group, and the momentum that we're building with Fortis, with the Collective Investment Group, with Home Revive, just different businesses that we're working on together, all interwoven. The big brokerage change. I was with Keller Williams for the longest time. That's where I met my business partner. That's where I learned how to be a realtor, and then shifting to our new brokerage, EXP, which opened up a whole new world of opportunities. And basically, I didn't want to be the big fish in a small pond. I wanted to be the small fish in the ocean, because there's so much to learn. And I'm going to emphasize this in all these discussions and topics that we're going to talk about, is there's just so much to learn in this world. And that's why I'm excited to have more conversations around it. So that is my background. Gives you an idea of where I came from, my history, and what we're working towards, what the horizon looks like, and a lot of topics in between. So as I discussed in the beginning, we're going to talk about like becoming a real estate agent, what being a realtor looks like now, and all the different strategies and life by design, like everything you can do as a realtor. There's no right way or really wrong way. There's so many different ways to make money in this business, but it's also not for the faint of heart. You actually have to work at it. There's no real luck involved. You have to create your own luck in a sense. Real estate investing, that's such a broad term, because there can be discussions around anything from flipping homes to owning rental properties, short-term properties, owning commercial, what that means, multifamilies, flipping land, to investing with a group of people in a syndication, their REITs, there's also stock options, like it's on and on and on. And then, of course, the rest of the investing world, which it's fun to dabble in, but the intent is to really focus on real estate in general. And then entrepreneurship. My goal is to talk to other entrepreneurs. They may not be in real estate. They may have their own businesses. They may be car detailers. A friend of mine runs his own government contracting business. There are other folks who they may be entrepreneurs, and it's not necessarily a profit-driven business, but they just have their own passions that they want to explore, that we'll dive deeper into, that we'll talk about. So the intent of all this is just to really break down all the talk into a simple conversation around these popular topics and see what we can learn together. Until then, I'll see you at the next talk.